Welcome to lecture 3 on module 2. In the previous lectures we discussed about the definition of planning, types of planning, components of planning, for example policy, procedures, programs, and then we also seen the process of planning. Today we are going to discuss about traditional objective setting and methods of planning. Let's get into the lecture. Okay, what is traditional objective setting? So it will be very important to understand when you're talking about planning, objective setting. Then the subsequent lectures we are going to see about forecasting, decision making, strategic planning and all. So it is important to understand how objectives have been set and what are the methods, various methods been followed by the organizations in setting the objectives. We will start with the traditional objective setting. It is an approach of planning in management practice. Generally the objectives are set by the top level of the organization and then it is divided into sub-unit objective for each level of the organization. It's nothing but where the top level management people will set the objectives, then those objectives at the and for example in the area, every organization the hierarchy is like a triangle where you say top people at the top on the top management, then there are different levels in the organizations. So in the traditional objective setting, management people at the top will set the objectives, then that will be divided into sub-unit level of each levels in the organizations. So mostly all these objectives in a traditional objective setting are set by the leaders of the organization, as they are at the top level of the organization and they have clear understanding of the organization to outline what they want to see the organization is. The reason being, though, the leaders at the top, they have the access to all type of information about the organization, in terms of financial perspective, in terms of the perspective for the organization, who are our investors, what is our next 3 years target, what is our financial situations, how likely we are going to increase or expand our businesses. So they have the better knowledge about organization, so they are able to set the clear objectives. Then that objective has been rolled down to the different levels in the organization. So it is like top level decides and then each level it ripple effect where it goes down and then it rolls down to the employees at the bottom level. That's the way the traditional objective setting works. Okay, now we'll see what are the benefits of this traditional objective setting. First and important one is efficient use of resources. It helps to optimize the resource utilization in terms of manpower, in terms of money, time and other resources, so that we are able to increase the productivity and proficiency. As we said, the people at the top are able to access a lot of information, more data is provided to them, they are accessing the reports from multiple functional areas. For example, let's every functional area take the decisions. Imagine when they collectively taking, there can be an inconsistency, there can be conflict between the functional areas decision makings. So but when the decision or the objectives have been set by the top level people, they are collectively have all this information, so they will be able to make efficient objective setting, so that they will be optimize the resources in terms of manpower, in terms of money, or whatever resources we are talking about, they will be able to use the optimum level. Then prioritization of the objectives. So it is very important. In every organization you will have multiple objectives. No organization will only have single objective. You will have multiple tasks, multiple goals to be done. The moment you have more than one goals or objectives are there, then it is important to prioritize. You cannot have everything parallelly going. Yeah, there are situations can happen, but even when you are parallelly sending, you need to prioritize. Okay, where I can infuse more money, where I can use more manpower. So the prioritization helps to finalize when and what to achieve. In case of setting of objectives are more than one, it is very important. When more than one objective, actually the traditional objective helps to prioritize. Okay, which will come first, which will come second. So there is a sequence of objectives, goals are prioritized in the number orders. Then measurement of progress. So when the objectives are set by the top level management, they know okay what are the activities to be done. When they know what are the activities to be done, it is easy for them to corroborate the progress. Okay, so this is the target set, what are we doing? Are we going in parallel with the objective set? Okay, even in case if there is a deviations, it actually helps the top management to check. Okay, so there are checkpoints, check and balances where okay, this is what the goal set, are they progressing or not? In case if they are not progressing, okay, quickly go provide inputs to the particular department or the division, so that they can come back to the same parallel position towards the target. So it helps in measuring the progress of the work. These are the three important benefits of the traditional objective setting. We will go and see types of traditional objective setting. What are the different types of objectives being set. One is organizational objective. An organization is built with certain objectives to achieve during its course of action. Every organization's existence is for a definite and specific purpose. So every organization will set their objective, why we are existing as a company. Okay, what are our goals are, what are our objectives are as an organization, what I wanted to go. For example, ISRO, take an ISRO as an organization. So ISRO's objectives are to of course explore the satellite, launch the satellites, and support the nation building exercises, and it also supports the national protection and security, and also in terms of advancing the technology and science. So there can be multiple objectives. So but organization existence will have to have a specific objectives and goal. Then financial objectives, that is very important. Let's say as an organization we are existing for some specific purpose, then you will have a financial objective. Okay, as an organization, what is my financial objective? Okay, how much of revenue I wanted to generate in the upcoming year or in the 5 years. Okay, what are my costs are. So there are financial objectives with respect to a specific function in terms of profit, in terms of cost cutting, in terms of savings. It can be austerity practices in order to reduce the expenses. So financial objectives is also one set of objectives in the traditional objective setting. Then strategic objective, objectives that an organization strives to achieve, and that will actually guide day by day decision in organization efforts to meet up the goals being set. So strategic objective is very important because that will drive the decision making for day-to-day functions, so that now you are able to progress towards achieving what is being set for an overall organization. So strategic objectives is to be set because it will going to drive the decision making. Then defined or stated objectives. So it is where now organization have set or wants to make some certain want to communicate to a stakeholders, because every organization will have multiple stakeholders, right, ranging from investors, shareholders, employees, customers, government as in stakeholders. There can be multiple stakeholders. So organization wanted to have a clear objectives, and there are defined objective which is already set. Then they also wanted to ensure that yes, this is what our objective, and they wanted to communicate the same objective to their respective stakeholders. Then real objective, we will be wondering what is that real objective. Is that objective what you have set is not a real? So sometimes what will happen, we will define an objective, an organization will define an objective, set an objective. There are always likely changes to happen. Real objective is always driven by what is being done, what is being carried out. That becomes the real objective. So yes, if we are doing this certain activity, then the real objective, yes, to do this particular set of activity is the real objective. There can be always possible changes subsequently can happen. So that's why real objective is to what is being delivered, what is we are driving to deliver it. So that becomes a real objective. Okay, now we will try to understand what are the different types of resources that we are going to consider when you are making objective setting. Okay, so one is physical resource. Yes, when you are making objectives, you need to consider the physical resource, the foremost and important consideration when you are making the objective. It relates to infrastructure, it relates to properties, it relates to human capital. Human capital is nothing but how much of manpower I should have. So the physical resources is important. Why physical resources is important? Let's say as a company I have only one production unit. Now let's say my target for the next 1 year, or let's say next 2 years, I wanted to expand my customer segmentations, increase my production from 100 metric ton to 500 metric ton. The moment I keep my target or goals being set, like increasing from 100 metric ton to a 500 metric ton, then I should understand what are my infrastructure needs are. Is it sufficient to have only one production unit to continue to produce, or should I increase my infrastructure? Then should I have to go lease out a property, or should I buy? Because this decision also driven for the next important resource, because when I wanted to buy a land and then construct, there is going to be a huge cost involved. Then there can be a potentially another lease out act, leasing out the property. It can be because it is quicker also, because you don't need to spend time of construction, all that. You can go identify a better place and then lease it out. So then becomes the financial resources. Yes, you need to, it includes the recurring and non-recurring grant, capital accumulated, internal external source of funding. You need to understand the financial resources in the organizations when you wanted to make an objectives. Okay, so you should also set your financial objectives also, as we have seen in the previous slides, that financial objective is important. You need to understand the financial resources in the organization. What are our fixed costs, what are our non-fixed costs, what are my sources of funding, how I'm going to generate revenue, who is going to be the investor, how I'm going to report to my investors, what is my plan for revenue generation, profit making. All that has to be done. Then innovation objectives relates to product design, staff mobilization, quality output generation by the employees and management, because as a company you always have to think over your existing product. Can you have an opportunity to bring up some more product, or you can make some changes to the existing product itself, so that you're trying to be able to attract more customers. So there is a product designs involved. You wanted to design a new product or make some redesign the existing products. That should be an innovation objectives also. Then market standing. In case of production, trading and business houses, market stand influences directly on achievement of the objective set. You also need to determine what is your market stand, whom you really wanted to target on. There can be multiple players operating in a same business environment, but as a player within this market, you will decide who will be your customer segments. For example, take air conditioner companies, let's say Voltas, Blue Star, O General, Hitachi. If you look at, there are specific companies, their target segments are different. For example, Blue Star, their major market share is on the industrial hubs or the larger organizations, whereas some O General or let's say Hitachi or Panasonic, they are into the individual, for the individual houses. So there are different kind of ways they wanted to say the market standing. Where do I want to fix my market standing? Okay, then productivity related objectives. It relates to the performance of the employees and strategic action taken by the management for achieving the objective at a desired level. So when you are talking about productivity based objective, you have to see that, okay, what is the efficiency rate I am expecting, what is the productivity, everyday productivity rate I am expecting. So you will always set the target, so that you are able to optimize the resources in a better way to continue to have a better productivity, better efficiency at the workplace. And you want to ensure that my employees are working towards the particular efficiency being set, what is the target is being set, so that we are continue to be a competitive player in the market business environment. Then profitability objectives. Every organization exists for a reason. One is that generate money, generate revenue. So every organization will definitely wanted to make profit. Now the moment I say make profit, there can be multiple ways you can make profit. One way is maybe you wanted to minimize the cost and expenses. That will also give you some opportunity cost, that you will have some more profit. Another is you tap new opportunities or avenues, you expand your business where your customer base is increasing. That will also give you profit. And time bound work, optimizing the better utilization of the resources, that will also contribute towards a profit generation. So you will also set the profit objectives. Every organization will also set the profit objective. Then managers performance and development. So management plays the top level directions, a decision in the objectives they set and put in downline to lower employees. So managers performance and development, because in every organization managers becoming responsible to drive their subordinates. The managers are the one who are responsible to drive the all activities in the organization. So you need to create an objective that okay, how each manager is going to function and how many people they are going to supervise, how they are going to drive the activities of the subordinate employees, so that collectively you are able to achieve the organization goals. So there will be a manager to review the manager performance, and you also guide the managers in terms of providing training objectives, what ways in which I should train my manager, so that they continue to support my organization's growth. Then another important thing comes here, workers performance, attitude and public responsibility. Now workers are at the implementation and achievement of the objectives set by the top level management, because though top level management can set some objectives, but again as I said, it will roll down to the bottom is the one who is the employees who is working, who is trying to produce the product. And maybe sometimes if you look at service sectors, where they are the one who is interacting with the clients, selling your products, marketing your products. So finally the performance is done by the lower level employees, or the employees at the front office or a front line or the shop floor. So you need to ensure that there are objectives set in order to in performance management of the employees, and how do you manage the workplace behavior, attitude of the employees, so that they are always motivated, they really like to contribute towards your organization. How do you may have to set up the performance evaluations, how much of increment you are going to give when they continue to produce really high, their efficiency is really high. There are some ways you need to ensure that you are going to motivate your employees, some ways of recognition, best employer of the month, and let's say top performer of the month, top performer of the week. That is also will motivate employees. So objectives has to be set both focusing on the worker performance and they're focusing on their attitude and behavioral perspective also. That is important when you are setting the traditional objective setting. Yeah. Okay, we will see the characteristics of traditional objective setting. So there are 4 main characteristics. First, one is they're very precise and measurable. Why they say it is very precise and measurable? As I said, top level management sets the objectives, they set it very clear, so that it is able to help the managers to do their day-to-day activities, right? So it will give the manager a standard procedure. Okay, this is what you need to do. It will give you very clear indication about what you have to do, what are the steps you need to carry out, so that this will become a guidance to measure the performance also, because it will tell me, okay, you have to do 1 2 3 4. When I say 1 2 3 4, that will actually tell me whether my employees are able to do this 1 2 3 4. No, not. If not, then you say, okay, they are not doing it, they are able to measure. So actually traditional objective setting provides in a clear and precise way of doing work, and also it helps to measure whether it is done or not. Then this traditional objectives address important issues. Few major objectives to assess the performance. They should address the crucial issues. Why they address the important issues? Because when the traditional objective has been set by the top level management, as I said, they have access to better information, since they are able to understand the complete resources in the organization. It can be physical resources, financial resources, or in terms of time constraints, they have the better things, and then they know what are the type of issues which is existing within the organization. Sometimes can be interdepartmental conflicts or interfunctional domain conflicts, or maybe sometimes between based on the quality issues. So they have a better knowledge about it. So when they set the objectives, they consider the way in which those issues can be better handled. Okay, then these traditional objectives are realistic. So what do they say realistic? Because when you set an objective, when you say this is the target, then employee should feel that it is achievable. The moment I say achievable, it is a realistic target. So when the moment you provide a realistic and achievable target, employee will be motivated. Let me give an example which I have also given in the previous lectures. Let's say I am a salesperson. Okay, so I am selling a insurance. Okay, insurance to my clients. Now, so every month my target used to be 15. Okay, now after this process of the exercise of objective setting, now the top management says, okay, your objective is going to be 50. Previously I was making my target is 15, now it is 50. Now the moment I say this is your target, so based on the likelihood to sell the insurance policy is also important factor to be considered in setting the target. And the moment they say when as a salesperson I don't see a scope to sell more than 15, and then my company demands that I should sell 50, then I feel it is a unrealistic goals. The moment unrealistic targets have been set, what will happen eventually? It will actually demotivate the employee. Employee will feel that okay, I'm very sure it is impossible to sell 50 insurance policies in a month. Then what will happen? It is going to impact my motivation. The moment it impacts my motivation, I don't even sell 15, which I was earlier doing it, right? So, but whereas when the objectives, traditional objectives, they will set the realistic objectives, so that it will actually improve the motivation of the employees, and it will also ensure that yes, continuous performance is ensured and employees are able to achieve the target, which is very realistic in nature. When they set the objective, they know they will also consider the general business environment, what is the way in which the business is operating, so they will set the realistic goals. So traditional objective setting will actually set the realistic goals. Then they specify a time period. When they define an objective, when they set a goal, they always provide a time frame within which it has to be done. So for example, when the goals are set or the targets have been set, it will say okay, within this many months we are going to complete it, within 6 months we are going to create this many products, or let's say we are going to generate revenue within 6 months. So there is a defined specific period which is given. So actually it will also drive me, because the moment there is no time frame provided, it will not help an employee to see the end, right? So when you are into the cave, you need to see the end. So end, you should say, okay, if you travel, let's say you're traveling, when your train pass through the tunnel, so when the moment train pass through the tunnel, okay, let's say the driver knows that there is going to be 1 kilometer tunnel, then I know after 1 kilometer traveling the tunnel I can see the light. Similarly, there should be a time frame should be given, so that my employees knows, okay, so within this time frame we need to achieve. So these are the major characteristics of the traditional objective setting. Yeah, we'll go about and see integrated network of traditional objective. It is very interesting concept. You will be learning it now. Okay, when an organizational hierarchy clearly defines the objective, it forms an integrated network. Is stated as a means end chain. How this mean chain end chain sets? Because as I said, the objectives are set at the top level. The moment the objectives are top level, as I said, it will roll down to each levels. So what will happen on each level, and they set the objectives. Now what will happen? Let's see, one objective, when the end of the one objective will create the next objective, next people to take it forward. So there is always a means end chain is being ensured. Okay, so there are it creates a network, right? What is that network? It says accomplishment of a certain objective at one level serves as the means for achieving the objectives at the next level. For example, let's say from the shop floor. Okay, so shop floor, I am having a sequence of activities. Okay, I produced a goods, so then that's the end of my production floor. So then what will happen? This particular product will go to a QC, quality check. So what now you can relate that example. Okay, this is a network where I finished producing a particular product, that is end for this particular activity, but whereas this becomes the start for the next activity, which is where is a quality section, where quality section go inspect the quality of the product being produced. So this is the network which is creating the means end chain. When one process ends, it becomes the starting point for the next process. So similarly, when objectives is met in one level, it becomes the beginning for the objective of the next level. Okay, this may be as follows. Individual employees objectives. Employees will work first to achieve the target, whatever it is given. They do not talk about the quality first. They wanted to achieve the target first. Then, as I said, now for example, as a example I have given in the product development, when you produce a product, then it becomes a quality department's role to see the quality of the product, right? Then department objectives. It's like individual, though objective has been set at the top level, then roll down to the low level employee. Now what has happened? As I said, the performance are generally done by the employees at the lower level. So now, how the means to end network starts? The employee at the lower level performs first. Then he moves to the department objective. So individual objective is set, okay, how much has to be done, what is the quantum of the work to be done, then it goes to the department objective. As a department, how much you have to achieve. So are you coordinating with the lower level employees so that you are able to achieve the department objective. Then from the department level objective, the divisional level objective, then the divisional level objective will add on to achieve the top level objective. Now you can see the parallel one. See, the objectives are traditional objective set by the top level, but it has rolled down to the lower level employees. Now the network, integrated network, how it is happening? It is other way around, where the lower level employees start to work, then the department level objective has been met, that has been decided, then that has been met, then it goes to a division level objective. The moment division level objective has been set, then it is contributes towards achieving the top level objectives. So that strives to achieve the highest performance in the organization. For example, let's say the top level objective is now I need to generate revenue of 5 crore rupees in this year. So that is the top level objective. But how do I achieve this 5 crore rupees generating the revenue? Then maybe again it depends on the what kind of a product or a service I do. So it will roll down to a department or product development department. Then it goes to the employees and the shop floor. You produce the product. Then there is a marketing department. They market it. They sell it. Then they connect the revenue. So then you are able to achieve the 5 crore as your revenue generation. So you see this is a network of activities. This is integrated network. Every divisions are integrated. One employee finish their work, then it goes to department objective. Then the department objective is met. then it is able to achieve the division level objective, then it moves to a top level objectives. Okay, that is all integrated network of traditional objective setting. Okay, now we will also see the process of traditional objective setting. So what is the process in which the traditional objectives are being set? First, the classification of objective as per nature and function of organization, which may be a short term, long term, or a medium term. So the classification based on the nature and functions, it will be done. Then objectives needs to be rational, reasonable, and realistic with adequate consistency. As I said, any objectives should be very rational. You need to look at all the alternatives and see what is viable, feasible, and it should be reasonable and realistic with the adequate consistency. There is a consistency between the objectives being set. Then most of the organizations have multiple objectives covering different areas and units of problem that needs to be integrated. As I said, in every organization you will always have multiple departments. So multiple departments will have their their own objectives also, but the moment you have their own objectives, but it is not that it can be independent of each other. It should be interconnected and then integrated, so that collectively it is able to achieve the organizational goals. Now balancing the objectives should be taken with adequate knowledge, skills, and thought of the management. As I said, you need to balance the objectives. How you are setting the objectives, are we balancing the objectives? It shouldn't be too high, unrealistic. So you need to balance the objectives with the adequate knowledge. Management has to involve. As I said, traditional objectives are set by the top level management, so they have to thought through the process and ponder around the possibilities, alternatives, the way in which you use the resources, and constraints existing in terms of general business environment, constraint internally in the company. So it all to be considered when you are balancing the objectives. These are the process of objective setting. Okay, now we will see the approaches of traditional objectives. There are two approaches. One is a traditional approach, which is nothing but a very age-old practice that people at the top of the organization always set the objectives for working at the lower levels. Okay, and there is another approach which is a management by objectives. They say MBO approach, which is where it is also very similar, where the decision or the objectives or goals or targets been set by the top level. But what has happened, the top level objectives have been rolled down to the lower level, where the employees also participate in deciding their targets, so that it is collectively achieve the organization goals. What will happen? Key results area, key performance indicators. So what will happen? The manager and the employee will participate and decide, okay, what will be my goal for next quarter, what will be my target for the next 1 year. So the management objectives will also provides an opportunity where employees and the manager can collectively involve and set their target, but this target will has to support the target set by my company or the top level. But whereas in a traditional approach, it is very clear, no participations, no managers or employees will make any contribution towards setting their own objectives. It is only objectives set with the top level. Whereas in the management objectives, where top level will set the targets, but for each level they are given freedom to set their own way of fixing the target, but in order to integratively achieve the overall organizational targets. So that is the management by objective approach. There are two different approaches. Okay, one is very traditional approach and another is a management by objective approach. Okay, now we will see the barriers of traditional objective settings. So some of the barriers, or I would say limitations of traditional objectives, lack of employee understanding. What generally happens, many organizations expect their team to do, but they are poorly trained and lack of practices. Sometimes, as I said, decision being set by the top level. It's an armchair kind of a planning where top level decides the targets. Sometimes they are not considerate about the needs and requirements, are not able to understand what is the reality at the lower level, what are the capacity of my employees. So that will actually become a limitation or a barrier in the traditional objective setting. Then big organizational network. There are times where you have a bigger organization where due to structural limitation, many of the teams are out of sight and out of mind of management. Huge organizations where imagine a company with 10,000 employees at many levels of the employees, then top level management decides the objectives where they might be not considering the employees at the low level. They do not even know who are those people, what are the general activity they do. They ignore in considering these people in their objective formulation. Then cultural lag. There is a cultural diversity among employees and management for which objective setting becomes hard work. For example, let's say as a company operates in multiple locations, every region has got their own different cultural practices, beliefs and systems, value systems. So when let's say I have a corporate headquarter in Delhi, imagine. Then I have my locations in Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, multiple locations. When I do not consider the local culture and beliefs and value practices, then I fix a certain objective, that will actually impact it. Become very difficult for a management to get the support from the people from the different locations, because the cultural lag will impact it. Then outdated objectives. Sometimes the traditional objective settings practice are backdated. Management are with the old mindset. They say no, we decide, you do it. Correct. So but whereas now with a lot of advent of technology and the advancement, where we need to it's a different approach, bottom up approach rather than the top to bottom. Now it's a bottom up approach, where you need to learn and hear from the bottom to achieve it. Then resource constraint. There can be essentially a resource constraint. Traditional objective focuses only on monetary issues. They might ignore other perspectives, so that can become a constraint. Okay, so the process of traditional objectives we will see. So statement of vision and mission. So review the organizational mission and vision statement first to go for the objective setting. It is very essential to understand the organization mission and vision statement, why you exist as an organization. Then changes need to do. It is important to analyze what changes an organization needs to do, that can be done through research. So you need to consider, before you are setting the objectives, you need to go through do a research to see what are the changes you need to make. Then collection of baseline data. You need to collect some baseline data so that you are able to have adequate information before you are setting the objectives. Then decision on a realistic functions. You need to look at after collecting all the informations, then collect the informations, try to see what are the possible ways of doing things, then you fix up the realistic ones. And then after doing all these alternatives being discussed, then you setting the objectives. You need to set the objective on the available informations with the realistic information provided, so that the objectives become achievable. Otherwise, if you are without the adequate information, you are setting some objectives, then become non-achievable. It become unrealistic in nature. Then review of the objective. Once the objective has been set, it shouldn't be rigid. You need to revisit the objectives. Okay, check. Okay, considering the changes, considering the upgradations and the subsequent actions, is the objective still holds good or not? Should we revisit the objective? Should we revise the objective? So that decision has to be taken. Okay, so now we are going to see the methods of planning. Now there are four important methods of planning. One is clarification of issues and problems. You need to enough time and thoughts to be given to understand the problem and compare the options. In every planning, you need to understand the issues. What is the issue we are going to work on? What is the problem we are going to address on? Then you need to see alternates being created. It is always against the best alternatives. You need to choose the best way of actions. How you can do? You can do through brainstorming, ponder over the idea, bring people, discuss about the possible ways in which you do. Then SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity and threat. You collectively decide on what are your strengths, weaknesses, what are the opportunities, what are your threats. Then problem trees, you do a problem trees, for example, complex big issues to small issues. Then logical framework analysis, cause and effect relationship, to try a kind of framework, and then you will be able to understand what causes which one. So the cause and effect relationship. Then also do a role play, assign different team to interpret the different problems, so that you have a additional sufficient information before you make your planning. Then analyzing spatial and intersectoral relationship. For example, some sectors are interconnected. Whatever the planning you are going to do, that will have interdependency that is going to impact your plan decisions or the way you are going to function. So when you are making the planning, it is very important that you analyze the spatial and intersectoral relationship. For example, map and land use plans to see composite picture of the selected areas, how we are going to operate, and sometimes use the simulations techniques, computerized simulations, how the land use will change for a population growth and other causes. So how the expansions, or now let's say city expansions are happening. There can be multiple things has to be considered before you are making your planning. Then socio-economic and environmental analysis. You need to do the socio-economic environmental analysis before you are making the planning. It is very important. You need to anticipate certain social and environmental and economic impact, because whatever the activities you do, you are going to be in the general environment. So you need to do the social assessment, maybe from ethnographic to a formal studies, to understand the social assessment. Okay, is it okay to launch this particular product, or is it going to be backfiring us? Then environmental assessment, you should see, you know, what is the impact which you are going to make on the, you know, environment. Are we, you know, environmental friendly product? Then benefit and cost analysis has to be done. What is the benefit, what is the cost of doing this particular activity or the product? Then you should also discuss on the future, you know, try to do the forecasting, you know, trying to see the future, what is likely to happen based on the information. You know, you need to do this socio-economic and environmental analysis. So these are the, you know, methods of planning. As I said, now you need to consider considering the alternates and the socio-economic assessment, and then now you need to understand the intersectoral relationship. These are the references. So today we discussed on the traditional objectives and the types of traditional objectives, the process of traditional objectives, the merits and barriers and the limitations. Then we also seen methods of planning, what when you are making a planning, what has to be considered. Thank you.